The night air is sharp, biting against exposed skin. Frost clings to the edges of the bus stop sign, the kind of cold that seeps through layers no matter how much someone tries to bundle up. He shifts from one foot to the other, trying to keep his blood moving. His hoodie, thin and worn from too many winters, barely shields him. The digital display above the road shows the bus is running late again. He exhales, watching his breath form a pale mist in front of him. That's when he notices her, a woman standing just a few feet away, her posture stiff, her shoulders hunched against the chill. She isn't dressed for the weather. No coat, no gloves, nothing to fight the icy wind that keeps sweeping through the stop. Her hands tremble slightly as she rubs her arms, her lips pressed together in an effort to hide just how badly she's shivering. For a moment, he just watches. Most people at this hour keep to themselves, eyes glued to the ground or their phones. But something about her struggle tugs at him. Maybe it's the way she looks like she doesn't belong here, like the cold has stripped away every layer of strength she might usually carry. He feels the sting in his own fingers, numbness creeping in, but the sight of her discomfort makes his own suffering feel smaller. Without overthinking, he unzips his jacket. It's the only barrier between him and the freezing night, but he doesn't hesitate. He steps closer, clearing his throat gently so he doesn't startle her. "You look like you could use this," he says quietly, holding out the jacket. Her eyes widen. She shakes her head almost instantly, embarrassed. "No, no, you need it. You'll freeze." Her voice wavers, caught between pride and vulnerability. He offers a half smile, the kind that carries no judgment, only reassurance. "I'll be fine. Really, just take it." The jacket hangs between them for a moment, suspended in the cold air like a question neither of them knows how to answer. She hesitates, her pride battling against her need. The wind howls again, harsher this time, and she finally reaches out. Her fingers brush against the fabric, delicate and trembling. When she slips it on, the jacket swallows her frame. It's too big, the sleeves covering her hands, but she pulls it tight around herself. She lowers her gaze, murmuring a soft, almost inaudible thank you. He nods, not pressing her for more. The silence between them isn't awkward. It's heavy, filled with an unspoken exchange. In that instant, he doesn't see a stranger. He sees someone fragile, someone who needed a hand at the right moment. The bus stop light flickers overhead, casting both of their shadows onto the wet pavement. Cars rush past in the distance, their headlights briefly illuminating the scene before disappearing into the night. He shoves his hands into his pockets, shoulders curling against the cold, but there's no regret etched on his face. The bus finally groans to a stop, headlights washing over the frosty pavement. The doors hiss open, and a warm draft escapes, a fleeting relief against the bitter air. He gestures for her to step in first, and she does, tugging the oversized jacket tighter around her frame. He follows, coins rattling as he pays the fare, then scans the rows of seats. Most are empty this late at night, but she slides into a spot near the middle, clutching the fabric around her like it's a shield. Something in him resists sitting far away, so he takes the seat beside her, careful not to crowd her. For a few beats, silence rules. The hum of the engine vibrates under their feet. The bus rocks forward, pulling them both into the same rhythm. He notices the way she glances out the window, eyes distant, like she's lost somewhere else entirely. He clears his throat, searching for something light, something harmless. "Guess the bus likes to keep us waiting just long enough to turn into popsicles," he says, forcing a crooked grin. Her lips twitch, then, unexpectedly, a small laugh escapes her. It's quick, fragile, but real. The sound surprises both of them. She hides it behind her hand, but he sees it, the relief of a moment breaking through the cold. "That's one way to put it," she murmurs, her voice softer now, less guarded. He nods, encouraged. Words begin to tumble more easily, the kind of casual observations that don't matter on paper, but mean everything when you're trying to bridge the gap between two strangers. They talk about the weather first, then the lateness of the buses, then little things, like how the city always feels colder than it should, how coffee never stays hot long enough, How night seems to stretch forever when you're waiting alone. She starts to loosen her grip on the jacket, resting her hands in her lap. He notices the fine lines of exhaustion in her face, the way she tries to sit upright as though posture alone can hide her weariness. She asks him if he takes this route often. He shrugs, says it's the cheapest way to get home after work. He mentions long shifts, odd jobs, nothing glamorous. Her eyes study him then, as if she's searching for something hidden behind his casual tone. He doesn't notice her careful attention, doesn't realize she's listening harder than she lets on to him. It's just a conversation with a stranger on a bus. To her, it's a glimpse of someone unpolished, someone who hasn't learned to wear masks. When the bus rattles over a pothole, their shoulders bump lightly. Neither of them pulls away. Instead, the silence that follows feels different, less empty, more alive. She looks down at the jacket draped over her, fingers brushing its worn seams. He notices but says nothing. The city lights streak by outside, neon reflections dancing across the bus windows. Inside, the world feels smaller, contained in their shared space. Two passengers, bound together by nothing more than chance and a single act of kindness, speaking quietly while the rest of the night speeds past unnoticed. Morning light filters through cheap blinds, slicing across his cramped room. The alarm blares, a shrill reminder that today isn't like every other day. Today he has an interview, not his dream job, just an entry-level position, the kind people take when they're desperate for a start. He stands in front of the mirror, tugging at his hoodie, wishing it looked sharper, newer, more professional, but it's all he has. He rehearses answers under his breath, muttering lines about teamwork, reliability, ambition. His voice falters when he hears how thin they sound. Still, he straightens his shoulders, grabs his worn bag, and heads out. The city morning is busy, alive with motion, and he blends into it like another face rushing through. The building looms ahead, all glass and steel, intimidating in its perfection. He swallows hard before stepping inside. The lobby is polished, every surface gleaming, a place that makes him feel smaller with every step. He checks in at the front desk, receives a visitor badge, and rides the elevator to the top floor. The ride feels endless, the kind that stretches nerves thin until even the hum of the elevator becomes unbearable. The doors open to a hallway lined with framed photographs and company awards. His sneakers squeak faintly against the pristine floor. A receptionist ushers him into a large boardroom, its long table surrounded by sharply dressed professionals. He tries to ignore the way their eyes sweep over him, quick judgments they don't bother to hide. Then he sees her. At the head of the table, poised, commanding, sits the woman from the bus stop, the woman who had worn his jacket just hours before, the one whose voice trembled in the cold. Only now she is transformed, no shiver in her frame, no fragility in her posture. She wears authority like armor, every inch of her radiating control. His breath catches. His body stiffens. The room seems to tilt, reality folding into something surreal. She notices him instantly. Her eyes flicker, recognition sparking like a hidden flame. He expects her to pretend, to look past him as though he's a stranger, but she doesn't. Her gaze pins him in place, sharp and unwavering. The others in the room shuffle papers, prepare notes, completely unaware of the storm building in that quiet recognition. He stands frozen, jacketless, hoodie clinging to him like a mark of his place. The contrast is brutal, her power against his vulnerability, her authority against his uncertainty. His mind races. Questions claw at him. Does she remember the kindness? Does she see him as weak, desperate? Is this coincidence or something far larger? He can't read her expression. Her lips press into a line, her hands folded neatly on the polished table, but her eyes hold a story no one else in the room seems to hear. The panel begins introductions, voices blending in a blur. He can barely register the words. All he can feel is the weight of her presence, the sharp twist of fate that has pulled him from a freezing bus stop to this room where everything hangs in the balance. The room feels colder than the streets outside, though no one else seems to notice. He sits at the edge of the long table, trying to control his breathing, his hands pressed flat against his knees under the desk. Around him, the interview panel flips through files, clicks pens, resumes with clinical precision, but his attention is fixed on her, the woman from the bus stop, now revealed as the CEO leans back in her chair, silent, observing. She hasn't spoken a word since he walked in. Her face is unreadable, her expression carved in composure. To the others, she's their leader, the final authority in the room. To him, she's something else entirely. An unexpected link between kindness in the dark and this bright, unforgiving spotlight. The first question comes from a man with wire-framed glasses. "Tell us about your work experience." His voice cracks as he begins. He lists odd jobs, warehouses, late-night shifts, deliveries, customer service stints that never lasted. Nothing polished, nothing that belongs in a skyscraper like this. He stumbles over words, fighting the heat rising in his cheeks, knowing each answer only makes the gap between him and the others wider. A woman on the panel asks about his long-term goals. He gives a vague answer about stability, about wanting to grow. He can feel their judgment, the unspoken thought that he doesn't belong here, but then her voice cuts through the air. The CEO speaks at last. Her tone is calm, measured. "Why did you give away your jacket last night?" The room stills, pens stop moving, heads turn, he blinks, caught completely off guard. His mind scrambles. How much does she want him to reveal? Was this supposed to remain private? His throat tightens, but the silence stretches, demanding a response. He swallows. "Because you were cold." He says simply, no polish, no performance, just the truth. A murmur ripples through the panel, a few confused glances exchanged. They don't understand. They weren't there. To them, it's a strange, irrelevant detour from professional qualifications, but she doesn't look away. She studies him with steady intensity, as if weighing something heavier than his resume. He shifts in his seat, pulse hammering. Should he say more? Should he explain that it wasn't about charity or pity, but instinct? That he couldn't stand there and do nothing? He hesitates, his mouth opening slightly, then closing again. Her eyes narrow, not unkindly, but sharply, like a lens focusing. She tilts her head. "You gave away the only layer you had, and you didn't ask for anything in return. Why?" The others lean forward, waiting. He feels every ounce of pressure crushing in, the walls of the boardroom pressing closer. His palms sweat, his throat dry, his mind caught between self-defense and raw honesty. The seconds stretch. Every heartbeat pounds like a drum in his ears. He knows this isn't just a question. It's something deeper, a test, one that could shatter the fragile line between failure and something else entirely. The silence lingers like a weight, every second stretching until it feels unbearable. He sits frozen, eyes fixed on the CEO, unsure if he should repeat himself or explain more. But she doesn't let the pause collapse into emptiness. She leans forward, resting her elbows on the polished table, her voice steady but sharper now, almost surgical. "You didn't hesitate," she says. "Most people would have looked away, pretended not to notice. You didn't. Why not?" He swallows, his pulse hammering in his throat. "Because I couldn't just stand there. It didn't feel right." The words hang in the air, rough and unpolished, but genuine. The panel exchanges uncertain glances again, some eyebrows raised, a few lips pressing into skeptical lines. This isn't the script they're used to, not the polished rehearsals of overconfident candidates. One of the directors clears his throat, shifting the focus back. "With all due respect, shouldn't we be talking about qualifications?" But she doesn't move her gaze from him. Her eyes are locked on his, searching, measuring, as if the entire room has vanished around them. Finally, she speaks again, this time addressing the room as much as him. "Qualifications matter, but character matters more." A ripple of discomfort crosses the table. Someone mutters about procedure, about fairness, about the risk of taking chances. She silences them with a single raised hand. The authority in that small gesture is absolute. Then, turning back to him, she says something he never imagined hearing. "The role you applied for, it isn't enough for you. He blinks, unsure if he heard her correctly. The role isn't enough. He had barely convinced himself he might deserve the lowest rung, the smallest chance, and now she's saying it as if it's obvious. The room stiffens. One of the panelists protests. He doesn't have the experience, the education. Her voice slices through the objection. He has what you can't teach. Her words crash into him like a wave. He feels dizzy, as though the room has shifted and the ground under him is no longer solid. He tries to process, to breathe, to make sense of why she is doing this. Why she is turning his single act of instinct into something far greater. His mind flashes back to the bus stop. The freezing air, her trembling hands, the way she whispered thank you without lifting her eyes. That moment had felt small, fleeting, nothing more than a human reflex, and now here she is, elevating it to the center of everything. She leans back again, her expression unreadable but firm. I want people in this company who don't wait to be told what's right, people who see what others miss, people who act. Every word sinks deeper, tightening the knot in his chest. His mouth is dry, but he forces himself to meet her gaze, to hold steady even as the weight of her scrutiny bears down. The panel stirs with whispers, some incredulous, some intrigued, all unsettled. He sits in the middle of it, heart pounding, not sure if this is salvation, a trap, or something stranger entirely. The room quiets again. All the whispered doubts, all the shifting bodies, seem to fade into the background. He can feel every eye on him, but none more piercing than hers. The CEO folds her hands, deliberate, calm, the embodiment of control. Yet beneath that stillness, he senses the weight of a decision that could change everything. You remind me, she says slowly, of what I once was. Someone no one expected much from. Someone who had nothing but instinct and the courage to act when it mattered. The words strike him harder than any critique. His throat tightens, his chest heavy with a mix of disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. He doesn't move, afraid even a breath will break the fragile moment. Around the table, the panelists exchange glances again. Some are shaking their heads subtly, unwilling to accept what's happening, but her authority is unquestionable. With a small shift in her tone, the decision feels sealed. You came here for a job, she continues. I'm offering you a career. The words hang in the air like thunder after lightning. His heart slams against his ribs. He can't tell if this is real, if he's hallucinating from nerves and lack of sleep, but the look in her eyes tells him it's no illusion. I don't want you answering phones or filing papers, she says. I want you where decisions are made. I want to see what you do when the stakes are bigger than a jacket on a cold night. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes. The panel waits for him to collapse under the weight of it, to stammer, to expose himself as unprepared. But instead, he steadies his breathing and simply nods. Not from arrogance, not from entitlement, but from the quiet understanding that this moment, this impossible, absurd twist of fate, is not one to waste. The interview ends not with more questions, but with her final instruction. You'll hear from me personally, soon. He leaves the building in a daze. The sunlight outside feels too bright, the noise of the street too loud, the world itself too normal for what just unfolded inside. His hands tremble as he shoves them into his hoodie pocket, his jacket still gone, but his chest burning with something far warmer. He walks past the bus stop again, the same place where everything began. The sign still stands crooked, the pavement still wet with last night's frost. He pauses, staring at the empty space where she had stood shivering. The memory feels sharper now, more vivid, as though it's branded into him. One act of kindness, a reflex in the cold, had shifted the axis of his life. He exhales, his breath curling into the morning air, and a quiet smile tugs at his lips. He doesn't know what the future inside that towering glass building will hold, or how far this path will take him. But he knows this. Sometimes the smallest choices ripple louder than we ever expect. A jacket, a moment, a stranger, and now, an entirely new destiny.